So I realized that there's this issue, which is that I don't know what the life is supposed to be, and that's why now that I'm actually starting to live. So before this point of my life, I never actually lived. I just lived inside of my head. Now that I'm actually living, I'm actually doing things outside of my head. I'm actually changing things about taking decisions that are going to affect my actual life. I'm starting to realize that because I don't know what life means and because nobody knows what life means, to me as a very detached person, nothing really mattered. Well, nothing in real life really mattered. And now that I'm living in the real life, it feels like nothing about me matters. And that's why I thought to myself, what makes me happy? What makes me feel alive again? And then I realized that I'm becoming more and more close to this one personality, which is that, the people who say that they can't live without working, like workaholics. That's what I'm going to, because other than my work, it just seems like I'm just existing. I don't know how to have fun with my life. Today I tried to have fun with my life, and I ended up to have fun. I ended up studying, even though it's summer holidays, which is super messed up because normal kids who know how to enjoy their lives would not even touch the textbooks. I went ahead and opened my old physics book and started studying, and that made me feel good. That made me feel like I was living. So I want to create a character. His name is Vincent. He has been working, I don't know at what point, I don't know the exact years for somebody to retire is. I guess he's like 50 years old and he's retiring, okay? And as he's retiring, he's questioning, do I want to retire? His friends are like, yeah, you would want to retire at this age, But then he decides to take some days off, And no, he actually just remembers that in the holidays where he didn't have any work, he just didn't feel anything. He didn't know what to do. That's why now he's questioning, should I retire? I saw a video where an old lady, she had a restaurant. Basically the video was trying to advertise her restaurant. But I looked at her and I was wondering, why does she still want to work? She looks very, very old, But she wanted to work. And I'm starting to get to a point where I understand why she would want to work. I think there are so many, I love people who are simple, who can just live, That's why we came to Earth, to live, And so they just live. But it seems my situation is a bit complicated. And it seems some people out there are also complicated like that. So yeah, Vincent decides to go back to his work. When his co-workers insist and he goes back home, he does try to live a couple of days like a normal human being. He goes let me just get myself together and live like a normal human being. But then he starts finding himself some hobbies, and then he starts just living through those hobbies. And then he starts obsessing about those hobbies and just extremely doing those hobbies. Because there is nothing. I don't know what the answer here is, you know? Because, like, if you think if you start thinking and being like, yes, there has to be a life outside work. But what is it? Is it just drinking tea, looking at outside your window? Just hanging out with your friends? Like, how does that take you anywhere? How is that living? You know? I mean, I did say in one of the videos, I think it was the video where I talked about the character Owl. Owl doesn't think about the meaning of life, and then I said that the meaning of life is just growing. It just makes you grow. But how are you supposed to grow just by talking to people you love? Like, without having anything in your mind, without having any goal in your mind. That's why Vincent ends up dying without retiring, ever. Even in his days where people forced him to retire, he made sure he did something. He made sure he went to another place where people did not force him to retire. And he worked until his last days, you know. He never wanted to retire. Can you understand? Can you sympathize with him?